Welcome to another hour of good nature from the deck. Um, just a little forewarning in case it should be an issue later. I didn't feed my dogs, so as I'm talking to you here, I'm facing the sliding door, and there are three pairs of eyes just staring a hole through me. The look of betrayal on their faces. So I think we'll be okay. Nobody's barking. But they are kind of distracting. I may have to avert my gaze. Anyway, um, let's try that. Um, it's been a couple of weeks since we last gathered. Few things have happened. For one, the days are now getting shorter. When we were meeting before, we hadn't yet gotten to the solstice. So now every day we're losing a couple of days, a couple of minutes of daylight. I think we'll be okay tonight. Although my goodness, this smog, this fog, this smoke, the Canadian wildfires, those poor people up north. I have yet to really delve into how widespread and what areas are on fire. But my goodness, today I actually had kind of a headache all day, and I wonder if that is why. I wonder if I should be sitting inside. Oh well. Um, there's been some advancements too in the wildlife around us. A lot of birds that were raising their young in the nest have now seen those young fledge. We've still though got a significant number of birds that are tending to those young. Um, we'll probably be talking about that for the next few weeks as different types of birds advance through those stages. Something, and I want to say I've seen robins do this. I wasn't home today to see who was doing this, but I came out tonight. Something was foraging, and I'm guessing they're looking for food for their young. It was foraging in the gutter. So one, it's time to clean the gutters because the silver maple here has loaded the gutters up with its seeds. But my deck has a big pile of them here that these didn't fall down from the tree. That happened a few weeks ago. What we're looking at here are the dried seeds, and the seed itself isn't eaten, so we know it wasn't a seed-eating creature that was up there. I think again, I've seen robins, I've seen grackles, I've seen different birds feeding in the gutters, and there must be a whole little ecosystem of other creatures that live up there. When I do clean the gutters, if it's at all moist up there, there are oh gosh, there's millipedes. Sometimes there's even earthworms, which I don't know how those get up there. But I have on occasion found those. We did get some rain last week, so maybe the gutter offerings are more tempting now. Maybe there's other insects that have delved in there to get the moisture, and then the birds are going after them. Anyway, maybe you're seeing this too. I know I have to sweep the deck. I also have to sweep my front step later too. So other news here around the house, you might be seeing something similar in your own homes or neighborhoods. Let's see, I don't know if I can, you can't even really see it. At the back of my yard, I have a bird feeder that I've had for a very long time, and it hasn't had bird seed in it in a very long time. I would guess maybe 15 years. What I found in feeding the birds was that I was attracting a lot of other creatures to the yard, which was fine, except some of those creatures started to gnaw into the house. The mice, the voles, the chipmunks. So I was finding a lot of creatures in my garage that I just figured that they would be better, you know, elsewhere. So I pulled in, um, quit feeding the birds. But that doesn't mean the bird feeder is going unused. Shortly after that, maybe attracted by the smell of the seeds that used to be in there, a little mouse went up the pole, and made a nest inside. Now this feeder, it's one of those squirrel-proof feeders, so it looks kind of like a house with a long slanted roof. And it's got a perch for the birds, but it's also got a spring on it. So if something heavier than a bird, like say a squirrel, lands on it, that perch slides down and it cuts off the food supply, the seeds. So there's many access points, and if you're say a little mouse, you can get over into those little holes where the seeds come out pretty easily. So the mice moved in and created a fabulous nest. And again, this is many, many years ago when this first happened. They gathered bits of, like, gosh, there was string, there was cloth, there was feathers, there were fur that I think might have been from my dogs, because I do brush them back here. Anyway, all kinds of wonderful things made into this big fluffy nest. Well, once the weather warmed up, that was in the fall, and in the winter when spring came, the mouse or mice vacated the bird feeder, and then bumblebees moved in. And I've been seeing this mouse and bee cycle now pretty much every year or every other year. Bumblebees, for some reason, they have, I don't know if they prefer to nest in rodent nests, or I don't know what the relationship is there, but sometimes bumblebees will make their nest in an old chipmunk burrow. I know when I did have mice going into the garage, there was a crack in the foundation. And when the mice left there, bumblebees moved in, which was pretty cool. Anyway, the bumblebees found the mouse nest. Now, I'm going to try it. Those of you who tune in regularly know my luck with video lately has not been good, but I want to try and show you a little video I made about a week and a half ago of these bumblebees. So let's see, we're going to share the screen. And minimize that. All right. So I'm screen sharing. There we go. All right. Let's wind this up. So here is this massive mouse nest. I'm lifting the lid on the nest, the stick, and then I'm videoing. By the way, the first time I tried this, it was right about here when I just got my first view inside the nest. They sent a guard bee out. And she wasn't real happy about this intrusion that I made. And it was funny, it was only one sentry, one guard. This does seem to be a rather small nest, so maybe they could only spare one worker with that designation. I don't know, but she came after me. So I ran up here, and I don't run very fast. I think she passed me at one point. But anyway, I got up here, and she was buzzing very loudly. I reached to the handle, the sliding door to open it up and go in, and she got me on the thumb. So I thought, oh, fair enough. By the way, bumblebees, that whole thing about bees losing their stingers and dying, the stinger stays behind and continues to pump venom. That's only true of our honeybees. Bumblebees can sting multiple times. So she got me, she injected some venom. It was a pretty good jolt. Luckily, knock on wood, I have yet to have any real severe reactions to bee stings. So I waited inside for not very long, and I figured she'd given up, and I came back out, and she got me on the arm. So she wasn't finished. She must have been able, maybe she could see me through the glass. I don't know. So I went back in. That next time I waited a few minutes before I came back out. I didn't see the bee, I didn't hear the bee, but tech support puppy Boker Boy came out with me, and I think she might have still been lurking. I think the bee was still around because I saw him grab. He's the one that ate the carpenter bee. Remember a few weeks ago? Well, he grabbed it, and I saw him like shake his head a couple of times. But he didn't yelp or anything. I didn't see the bee after that. And then when I went to make this video, there were no more bees that came after me. So anyway, hopefully they now have another designated. But here we are, we're looking at, and let's stop this again. So look what this has grown here. So this was started by a queen who overwintered down in the leaf litter over, last fall is when she left her home colony. She found a place to overwinter. Usually they're in leaf litter or some place of some little bit of cover anyway. And then this spring, she found this mouse nest and moved in and she collected pollen and nectar, which is what we're seeing here. These little balls of food that she then laid eggs on. And those eggs hatched, they fed on the pollen and the nectar, they grew, they pupated, they emerged, and now these are the workers that she has produced. So that's her job now. The queen's job is to continue to grow her colony. So she's strictly in egg laying mode. And the workers are kind of doing all the other business. These little cups here, in addition, so they do collect nectar, as do honeybees. Now, honeybees collect tremendous amounts of nectar because they need a food supply throughout the wintertime. They remain active. So they need something to eat when it's too cold to go out and forage. So that's why they're so, advantageous to people who like honey. Bumblebees will make small amounts. They'll collect nectar and they will evaporate it to thicken it. But they don't make it in nearly the quantities that honeybees do, but they'll make these little honey pots that they store the honey in. So, okay, I've talked enough. Let's just watch them mill around a little bit. And then this is about over. So let's watch it again. I'm not going to say anything this time. There they are. Super cool, huh? Maybe you'll be lucky enough to have some bumbles living near you too. All right, I'm going to turn this off, and let's go ahead and hop onto our slides for tonight, because the first one is actually that same nest, just in still form. So I think this is Bombus impatiens, which is the eastern or the common bumblebee. I took this picture because I think it's the queen. She's much larger than her nestmate. She kind of came out maybe, this was after I took the video, so she might have been wondering just what the heck was going on, what's the disturbance about. But it was a really cool glimpse into something that we don't often get to see, because again, they're usually underground or now one time I did have a friend who she has a potting shed in her backyard, and she had a paper bag on the bench, the potting bench, that had some seeds in it. And apparently the mice in the neighborhood there found that attractive. They made a nest inside that bag, vacated it, and then the bumbles found it. So again, there's some kind of attraction between rodent nests and bumblebees. But might be column material. We'll see. Boy, you can see there's a lot of, I see a lot of my dog's hairs here. Maybe that's good insulation. Maybe the mouse dragged those out there amongst all of these leaves and everything. Anyway, lots of other things we need to talk about. This was a picture I received in an email, and it was a request for identification. A couple saw this item down on the sidewalk and wondered what kind of a creature this could be. Was it an insect? Was it something else? I don't think we can zoom on this because this was a contributed photo, but I did a little bit of searching on the internet. I actually did an image search and found these. It's a Excite Baits Raptor Tail Junior. Yeah, it's a fishing, an artificial bait for fishing. I think it's supposed to maybe be a crayfish. The one that was on the sidewalk had lost these large structures here that are maybe supposed to emulate the claws, but and it looks like maybe part of the end is missing too. But yeah, I actually have, I should have brought it out here. I had found right about the same time these people found this on their sidewalk, I found a big old rubber earthworm over at Potawatomi. Somebody had dropped their bait over there too. Anyway, 'tis the season, right? I had occasion to visit Otter Creek Bend Wetland Park. That's the park that's up at the corner of Crane Road and Silver Glen. Some of you may have taken classes there. Some of you may have taught there. Well, this is Otter Creek, and I was really surprised. We since COVID, we really have not taught any classes at Otter Creek Bend. If longtime residents might remember, Otter Creek, as it flowed through the park, was the subject of a big undertaking, a pretty extensive streamline stabilization, stream bank stabilization project. The bank, the Otter Creek through this area was somewhat channelized. And when you straighten out a creek, when you take out its natural meanders and you turn it into a channel, the water's going to push through at a much faster rate. And when it does that, it's going to increase the erosion. The banks are going to become steeper. The water is going to be murkier. And it's without natural vegetation to hold everything in place, things are going to start to fall apart. So the stabilization that occurred, it held for a few years, but the techniques that were used they're starting to find that they don't hold up over the long term. Boulders and root wads were placed along the edges of the creek, and over time water will work its way behind those objects, and the root wads and the boulders will fall into the water, making it somewhat hazardous along those banks. I don't know what the future plans are. There's going to be attempts to fix that, remeander Otter Creek. I don't know. Part of the problem is upstream is also channelized. So regardless of what we do with our little chunk, it's still going to be heavily affected by the channelized portion that runs behind the Thornwood subdivision on the other side of Silver Glen Road. Well, the reason I took this picture wasn't so much to talk about the condition of the banks as it was to see what our good friends, the biggest rodents in North America, the American beavers. Look at this. Boy, what an engineering feat, this dam here going across the creek. So I took this picture. Those of you who are familiar with the park, I was standing on the little bridge. And when we taught classes there, we could walk into the creek right here, and there was a little sandy gravel bar type thing right here. And now it's the water must be, I don't know, 3 feet deep here at least, maybe more, certainly deeper than it would be safe to take a bunch of fifth graders in. But I was just really interested to see how when you let nature take its course, sometimes the nature really takes hold. There were also on the other side, I didn't get a good picture of it, but the other side of the bridge, the beavers have created quite a channel themselves going into the marsh. Beavers, in addition to building dams like this to raise the water level, I would imagine somewhere along here there are some bank dens that they're living in, but they will also dig channels into or off the side of the creek with the intention of having water flow up that channel. That way, when they go inland to harvest, say, willow branches, there's a lot of willow growing at the end of the channel they created here. They don't have to drag those branches, they can float them, which is, again, pretty ingenious, isn't it? So yeah, that's what's going on at Otter Creek Bend. When I was there, so this was about, gosh, it's going on 2 weeks now that I was there 2 weeks ago. The Great Angelica was just finishing its bloom cycle. This is a wonderful plant. If any of you have low areas in your yard or your property, places that stay even just a little bit wet, this might be a plant that you would like to consider. To me, it looks like fireworks. This plant, I would guess, was way over my head. I would say close to 7 feet tall. It's got the purplish stem. Really cool addition, something that you can use to help identify if you're approaching an area of wetness. You know, we always know to look for cattails and things, but Great Angelica is another marker of soil that holds water. So Susie, I don't know if you're on tonight, but I tried. I was going to harvest cattail pollen and I was going to make something of it, but I was actually also collecting some macroinvertebrates on this trip. So I had the cattails in one hand and my little bucket in the other, and I was just strewing cattail pollen everywhere. So I made the difficult decision to abandon the pollen collection. But look at how much pollen came off of these. So on a cattail flower, we've got the female parts down here, and we've got the male parts that produce the pollen up here. And look at all the pollen. And I wasn't shaking it or anything. I just picked these, and that's how much came off. So I think when I do this next year, I'm going to bring a bag with me, and I'm going to put the bag over the cattail flower heads and snip them that way, and probably catch a lot more pollen. My intent was going to be to make something then with the pollen, which behaves a lot like flour. It's supposed to make a pretty good protein addition to things like pancakes, or you can, I think you can even, just bake it straight, because the tiny grains of pollen are about the size of grains of flour. So yeah, I tried. I'll try again next year. Now we've left Otter Creek Bend, and this is a neighborhood over on the east side of St. Charles. We got a call from a gentleman who was concerned about a large nest in his tree, and from how he described it, I wasn't sure, because he said there were a lot of branches down in his yard, and whatever was making this nest seemed to be building it out of branches. So I thought, well, gosh, our raptors build nests out of branches. This was about the middle of June 15th or so. So it seemed a little late for raptor nest building. But you never know. I went to check it out. I was actually doing a talk just down the street from this neighborhood. So I stopped by, and what we see here is a large nest for sure, but it's a very leafy nest. And leafy nests, at least in our area, are made by squirrels. The gentleman was right. There were branches on the ground, but they were really more like large twigs. When he said branches, I was kind of picturing, like the branches that eagles use to build their nests. And these were pretty small. But if we zoom in here, we can see where they were gnawed. See, bite, 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 bite. These were gnawed off. They weren't off. So we're going to say that this was a squirrel in this neighbor's tree. I actually sat here on the sidewalk for a while, waiting to see if anything, would come out of the nest, and nothing did, but sticking with that diagnosis of a squirrel nest in the tree. Okay, so this can you hear all that? Of course, there's a plane going overhead now, so I can't barely hear it, but let me turn it up so I can hear it. Let's try playing this again. Can you hear all those green frogs? Play it one more time. This is the pond at Creek Bend Nature Center, Leroy Oaks. I was there as well week before last, looking for dragonfly nymphs, and I had just commented to someone that week about how you never hear a chorus of green frogs. And when I approached the pond, I didn't really catch it all, but here. There were so many green frogs calling, I could not distinguish between the calls, which those of you who are frog monitors know, you rate that a 3, which is a lot of green frogs. And there are a lot of green frogs there. As I stood listening, I noticed that there was one call that seemed to be, I could tell which direction it was coming from. It was coming from over here at the, what would that be, the north end of the pond? It's the end of the pond that drains down into Fearsome Creek. But it had a different tone to it. It was louder. It carried better. I was really curious about what it was that green frog had that the other boys didn't. So I went over, and he got quiet as I approached, but I laid down and I looked underneath the rocks here that form the end of that pond. And can you see him? Oops, it's not a great picture because I was kind of hanging upside down. Can you see him here? Here's the green frog that was making those very noticeable calls. So green frogs are one of 2 species in this area that we can tell the males from the females by looking at the size of the ear. And look at the males. So it's funny. It's the females that listen to the males. So you'd think, their whole, the whole breeding success is going to rely on the female listening to the male. So you'd think she would have the bigger ears, right? No, it's the males whom I guess maybe have the bigger ears to listen to each other and know how, they're faring in the big breeding competition. But anyway, here's his big ears. He turned away from me when I hung underneath there. And it's not a great picture, but I've seen this behavior before. One time I was in it was at a Western Illinois University field campus. It's out near the Mississippi River, and it's in a wooded area. and there was a lot of gray tree frogs that were calling. And same thing, there was one gray tree frog who was just louder than all of the other ones. Well, this guy had situated himself. He had climbed up on the building where we were holding the class and where we were staying. And he had situated himself on the curve of the downspout off of the gutter on the building. And it was like this perfect acoustic situation where he, for the same amount of effort as all the other frogs, he was able to make a much louder noise. So, and these guys, they know what they're doing. I did not take a video yesterday, but I was so surprised. So we had that rain over the weekend, and I was visiting a senior living facility called the Sheridan at Tyler Creek. It's up in Elgin, and they have a couple of they're probably retention ponds behind the building, and you could see how they had been. They were still smaller than I remember them being because of our prolonged period with no rain, but they did have water in them yesterday, and the toads were singing. Toads usually, they usually start singing in May, but yesterday was warm and they had water, so they were singing away. I did not hear toads when I was at Creek Bend and took this video. Well, I guess I took one other picture of him. Equally bad, but maybe a little closer. Yeah, the green frog that knows what he's doing. So in doing some netting in the pond, I was excited to see the development, speaking of our toad friends. So these were the products of the matings that occurred back in probably early May. This is technical term would be a toadlet. Little baby, quite a tadpole, not quite a frog yet. You can see he's still got a tail here, but look, he's got when a tadpole develops, they get their back legs first, and then they get their front legs. So this guy's got all four legs. Tail is reducing in size. That still holds food for him to live on, him or her to live on. And I think I've got, one more here. Here's another slightly better view and angle. Let's zoom in on this. So we've got, you can see the lumps and bumps, what are the so-called warts. Here's what remains of the tail, back legs, front legs. I would imagine that these guys, now I netted this little toadlet from in the water. So I don't think his transformation was 100%. I don't know exactly how they go from breathing dissolved oxygen through gills to breathing air with lungs. But I think he was right smack in the middle of that transformation. He was swimming around like a tadpole. Maybe they go up to the surface to start gulping air. Maybe that's the stage he was at. But anyway, I'm sure by now, because this was almost 2 weeks ago, I'm sure by now this little toadlet is now living and breathing and making its way on land and no longer living in the water. So I snapped this picture. This is also a Creek Bend. This is, I was heading back to the car. This is the bird known to be frustratingly plain. There's talk about a bunch of nothing significant. Brown, lighter brown, medium brown, a little bit darker brown on the tail. This is a cowbird. It's not a mature male. I'm thinking it's a female. It was picking amongst the detritus there on in the parking lot. But I've many times looked at these birds, go, what is that? What could that possibly be? Where are the field marks? Where's the, the wing bars? Where's, some kind of bold markings? They just don't have it. They are masters at just being remarkably, and sometimes, as they say, frustratingly plain. All right, so this, I'm not sure if Kim is on it, but our friend Kim is the steward at Johnson's Mound Forest Preserve, and this was a creature that appeared during workday. This is an Ichneumon wasp. I thought I had put the species on here. I'd identified it at the time. Oh gosh, I don't have my phone with me either. She had texted me the picture. So this is one of actually quite a number of Ichneumon wasps that we have in this area, and that crazy looking thing. So here we've got the antennae up here on the front. Then we've got this crazy, looks like a whip coming off the back. That is the ovipositor that this wasp will use. They have the ability to sense the presence of beetle grubs in usually dead wood, and they will insert that ovipositor down through the tiny little gaps in the cells of that wood into the body of the larva. And so then the wasp larva takes over and feeds on the beetle larva. You can't make these things up. They're just really an exquisite looking creature. I mentioned that I had been collecting dragonfly nymphs at Creek Bend. Oh, the dragonfly nymph is the insect that is most often cited as being the inspiration for those creepy jaws in the movie Alien. Sigourney Weaver, that creature that like bursts out of the belly of its host. Well, it turns out that the alien itself was based on the life cycles from a lot of different insects, including parasitic wasps like this, because their eggs are inserted into a host, which then they develop inside of that host, and then they burst forth, usually killing the host in the process. But anyway, very cool. And they are flying right now, the Ichneumon wasps. So clearly with another beautiful vista. In fact, I think there's a couple of them here. This is on the site of Johnson's Mound Forest Preserve that's not often seen. This is I forget if Kim calls it is the North 40 or the back 40. It's a rolling prairie area that goes towards, would that be Kesslinger Road? So north of the mound. Just now, don't be those of you who are native plant enthusiasts to overlook the yellow clover. This is something that Kim, as the steward and in the Forest Preserve District, their natural resources staff is well aware of. I'm sure it will be taken care of at some point. Yellow clover is not a native species, but it does smell really good. And I hear goats love it. But here, let's look this way too. Just look at the, it was just like, being someplace far away when you really are quite close to home. A lot of people, when they go to Johnson's Mound, they go up the paved, in fact, you can drive up the paved road that takes you to the top of the mound, which is a glacial formation known as a came. But there's a lot of other areas to explore too in these sections that have been added on. So if you are in the area and you want to check it out, instead of following the paved trail, the road that goes up to the top. Right before the road curves, would that be to the west? There'll be a gravel road on your right. There's a gate there. This is after you've parked your car and everything. Follow that gravel road and it will take you north and out here. Super cool. You should go check it out. Now, also at Johnson's Mound, and this, so I don't know which picture is worse. I think this one is actually a lot worse than the green fraud picture. But if we look closer at this, I'll probably have to describe to you what we're looking at here. Johnson's Mound is one of the oldest preserves in the forest preserves lineup. And it is somewhat well known for its population of big brown bats. Now, during the spring and fall migrations, there might be a few bats in the shelter here. Right now, or when this picture was taken a couple weeks ago, there was just one bat, which usually indicates this is not a maternity colony. This is a place where the males, the so-called bachelors, hang out. So there was just one bat there, and he was tucked up. This was way up in the rafters up above the picnic tables and everything. Big brown bats are known for their oily fur. They tend to leave marks where they roost frequently, and we can kind of see this here. The oily stains from the big brown bat and its frequent use of the accommodations there in the picnic pavilion at Johnson's Mound. Okay, so now we're going to go in another direction. This is, I apologize for this and the following pictures. This was just a weird thing I noticed a week ago yesterday. So we were still, we had not had rain. It was very hot. It was very dry. This is the Fox River Trail that goes, this is behind the Q Center. On the east side of the Fox River in St. Charles. There were a whole bunch of dead mice. And now things happen on the Fox River Trail. Chipmunks, I've seen a lot of chipmunks that have been run over by bicycles. They just, made a bad decision when they were crossing. But this number of mice had me curious. And I what I'm wondering is, if this drought that we've been in had the mice leaving the friendly confines of the woods and heading over to the river to get a drink of water, and then in crossing the bike trail they'd get run over. I don't know. There was so many. There must have been, I don't know, 8 or 10. I only took pictures of 3 or 4. Did I take any more? Yeah, no, I stopped after that. But yeah, there were just a whole bunch of run over mice on the bike trail, which I thought was really, really interesting. And there's, maybe you guys have other thoughts as to why there would be a lot of dead mice. The other thing, I think these are all house mice. They're all very gray. They didn't look like the soft browns of the wait, is that a shrew? No, it's a mouse. Yeah, a lot of little dead animals on the bike trail, and it could possibly be drought related. We'll just leave it at that. All right, bottlebrush grass. It's a gorgeous grass. I actually noticed I was doing something I haven't done near enough of this year, which is weed in the mess of plants I have in my front yard. And I started to pull some grasses, and I said, wait a minute, I don't think these are, I think I want these here. I think I have some bottlebrush grass that's starting to grow from seed in my front yard. But this is what it looks like. This is what the mature plants look like. They are a type of rye. And you can see, any of you have ever had to scrub out a bottle with a brush might recognize how this grass got its name. This was, again, this was over at Norris Woods, but there's nice stands of it pretty much anywhere that there's a mature, a rich woodland that has either had not a lot of disturbance or has been undergoing restoration. So it's wonderful native grass. Always happy to see good stands of it growing like that. This hands down was the coolest thing at Norris Woods that day. So when I was walking on the interior trail at Norris Woods, the one that's not the bike trail, behind the scenes we call it the sewer line trail because there's a sewer line that runs through the middle of Norris Woods underground. But I heard this sound and it reminded me of an old rotary dial phone that was kind of a so didn't think much of it because I thought, oh my goodness, there's a lot of insect noises that I just don't know them that well. Well, on the flip trip coming back through heading back south, this is the Fox River Trail that's behind Norris Woods, so it's the crushed lime portion of the bike trail. This little creature was making her way across, and let's zoom in here and see what we've got. So I looked at that and I thought, well, this must be some sort of immature orthopteran. We've got the hopping legs and our orthopterans. That's our crickets, our grasshoppers, our katydids. It's got long antennae, so that means it's not a grasshopper. So I was thinking some sort of katydid. And again, I was thinking immature because there's no wings. And I interpreted this as the wing pads that we're going to develop, but that was wrong. And I should have known that because look at this part here, this big old sword coming off the back. That's the ovipositor of a mature, as we can see down here at the left, protean shieldback katydid. I'd never heard of these things, but apparently they're somewhat common in northern Illinois. And there are different types. There's, in fact, shieldback katydids. You know those Mormon crickets that are marching across Nevada right now and in other parts of the West? Those are another type of shieldback katydid. So these guys are somewhat related to them. Turns out the sound I heard at the beginning of the walk, that soft, that was, in fact, I kept thinking one ringy dingy, two ringy dingy. That was the call of a male protean-backed shieldback, a male protean shieldback katydid. So these guys, they're mature, whereas our other, like our true katydids, our bush katydids, they are not going to be mature until we get into July and August. We don't usually hear our true katydids until the end of July at the earliest. Bug Guide says it has yet to be proven, but that there's one thought about these. The reason that we see adults this early is that they may overwinter in the nymph stage as opposed to the egg stage, which is how our other katydids spend the winter. So I don't know if there's any other studies out there that have shown how they get through the winter, but this was a really cool find in itself. But then as I was reading about their life history, I found out their they're omnivorous. They will eat plant material, which is very typical. That's what most katydids eat. But they can also eat animal protein. So they eat other bugs. A katydid, a killer katydid. I thought that was really neat too. And this is the color. There's variations. Color is not a good way to identify this insect, but browns, grays, they don't get bright green, which is a color we associate with a lot of our other katydids. Oh, and so what I thought was the wing pads, that's the shield on the back of the shield back katydid. So yeah, really cool. Since they don't fly, they walk around and they hop. So if you happen to find yourself in Norris Woods, maybe you'll be able to see one too. All right, every year I've got to talk for just a minute about this love. This is one of my favorite smells of the summer season. It is the aroma of the fragrance. It's not just an aroma, it's a fragrance. The basswood. Now, this happens to be a linden tree, but linden is the European version of basswood. A lot of lindens are planted as part of our urban forest canopy. Lindens have smaller leaves, basswood have larger leaves. They're both heart-shaped. Look at this flower, and this fragrance is just absolutely intoxicating. And a warm, humid summer evening, I love to walk around and smell the basswood. Now, over the last couple days, probably when we got the hard rain, it knocked a lot of these blossoms down. You'll see, as we saw a few weeks ago, the piles of sycamore seeds falling apart. Now we're seeing the parts of the basswood flower that are being knocked off, and they're drying up. They're going to go into their next stage, which is forming a round seed fruit, a fruit with a seed in it. Tiny little thing, not edible by humans, but a lot of rodents will gather those basswood balls. I don't know if this video is going to play or not, and I don't know. I don't think this microphone. Here we go. So that was just a little snippet of a song that was going on and on and on. In fact, he was singing throughout much of our program tonight, but again, I don't know if my mic was able to pick it up. That's the song of the extended song of the catbird. Every day now for the last couple of weeks, this male catbird has been hanging out here in this is the elderberry that rings like 3 sides of my yard. And it's a messy, tangly growth. It's not the sort of shrub that would have what they call curb appeal. But boy, if you want to create habitat for catbirds, get yourself some elderberry. So catbirds pick up sounds from their environment. And they string it together. They string it. It could be bird song. It could be different sorts of beeps that they've heard, scooter horns or microwave. If somebody's cooking with their window open. It might be frog calls. They can trill like a toad. They have an amazing vocal repertoire, and they just string all these songs along. Catbirds have been known to sing for over 10 minutes at a time, which is pretty cool. I don't know if you can hear, there's a cardinal that was just making some excited chip notes behind me. Just short little bursts of notes. the catbird, when I first sat down out here, it stopped its song and it switched to the sound that gives it its name. It was meowing at me. Meow, meow. It's actually kind of more of a meow. It's a sort of a nasally, almost sounds like they're annoyed at the interruptions. But then they go back to their happy little chatters. And now I think, oh gosh, it's almost 9 o'clock. He's probably done for this evening. But catbirds are very much present right now. If you find a tangled thicket, in fact, Dumatella is the name of the genus for catbirds, which means small thicket. So find yourself a thicket, and I bet you find yourself a catbird. Huh. So this was a picture. In fact, are there two of them here? Yes. The catbird, I said the cowbird, the female cowbird is plain. Catbirds are plain too, but it's in a I think a sort of a stately, understated sort of a look that they have. The full name is gray catbird. So you've got a gray body, a dark bill. They've got a black cap. When the lighting is right, which clearly it wasn't here, they've got you can see they've got a splash of rufous or rusty red color underneath their tail. I can't see it here either. This is one of his favorite. When he does come out of the elderberry, he goes up here in the silver maple, and there's an open spot, and he'll sit. Boy, sometimes he'll throw his head back, and he'll just be singing away. Very cool. Gray catbird. Ctenucha moths, they were out in force when we had our KCCN field trip on Saturday. This, we can tell by these small antennae. This is a female, as is this one, orange and an iridescent blackish blue. I call these the Illini moths, orange and blue. Here's one that was resting on the leaves of not sure if that's a peach, plum or a cherry tree, but yeah, there was a lot of Ctenuchas out. I thought it might be good for you guys to see this picture. Next picture was not recent. This is from May, a couple of years back, but this is what the Ctenucha moth caterpillar looks like. Fuzzy with a prominent kind of a reddish brown head. The year I took this, I think this was 2019, we saw a lot of, wait, so 2019 or 2021? We saw a lot of Ctenucha moths that year too, 2018. Okay. But yeah, some years are big years. I don't know what it is, what just means that last year they must have laid a lot of eggs. Because then this caterpillar came out the following year. So I don't know what the relationship is, but that what makes nature and population studies so dynamic. Now this was pretty exciting too. It's a ladybug, but it isn't just any ladybug. It is a glacial ladybug, which is a native species. We so rarely see native ladybugs. This one happens to be even bigger than the multicolored Asian lady beetle, which is the one we see everywhere and is fairly large in its own right. But oops. You can tell a glacial ladybug by the cluster of markings on the back end here. Now this pronotum, which is the shield that covers the thorax and sometimes the head, sometimes those markings are part of the ID traits that you're looking for. In this case, it didn't seem to be important. In what I was reading, the description focused more on these markings back here. They said sometimes these two upper marks will actually cross, they'll meet in the middle of where the wing covers come together. But that was an exciting find last Saturday too at Nelson Lake Marsh, Dick Young Forest Preserve. Just a couple quick things. The sedges have now gone into seed. This is Gray's sedge, which is growing out here in my front yard. And then I saw this one yesterday. It's kind of ironic. I was trying to get a nice close-up of the seed heads so you guys could see what they look like, but it's actually more in focus if we go behind here. This is called the brown fox sedge. This is an extremely adaptable sedge. This was growing where I heard the toads yesterday behind the Sheridan at Tyler Creek up in Elgin, Illinois. This is a relatively new area, so recently disturbed. This is a sedge, though, that does well in those conditions, as well as in well-established areas. It's also one of the most common sedges we see in sedge meadows around here. Sedges have edges, so they're not grasses. If you roll a grass stem in your hand, it's going to feel round. But these are the stem of the sedge has 3 distinct sides to it. It's got a, if you cut one in half, you'd see it's triangular in shape, but they have those edges that you can feel. And really, really interesting. They add a lot of interest to the landscape, even after the growing season is done, because of those unique seed heads they form. All right, this is just something that kind of made me laugh. This was a Google Doodle from right before the solstice on June 20th. This was a Polish artist who specialized in making art from fabric, from textiles. But I didn't take all that in. When I saw the Google Doodle that day, this is what I saw. And I thought, is that a pile of scat? What am I looking at here? I had to then click on it and learn all about, her innovative style of creating sculpture from textiles. But I was thinking, all right, there's the, there's the twists and the tapers. This has got to be a carnivore, a canine. I'm thinking probably a coyote or possibly even a wolf. That's where my brain went. That's why it takes me so long to get anything done, folks. And here we are, 9:04. It's time to call it a night. But before we sign off for good, looks like we got some chats. Where did those essential apps come from? Oh, Suzette, you found a nest of bumbles yesterday in a tree that you cut down. Oh boy, yeah, that'll set them off. I have a friend I used to work with who would do bumblebee relocations, and I remember as a kid being taught that you can pet bumblebees, but he always talked about how aggressive they are and how they will become very defensive. So I can only imagine if you cut through a nest, they probably pitched a fit. Hopefully you didn't get stung. Bumblebees are solitary. They are, they are ground, oftentimes ground nesters, but no, they will form a small colony. I'm glad you brought that up, Sarah. They create a colony, but it's not nearly the size of say a honeybee colony, whereas honeybees will have, in a little observation hive, there'll be 5,000 to 10,000 bees, and then like the numbers go up from there. The bigger the hives, there could be 20,000, 30,000, 40,000, 50,000 bees. But bumbles will make smaller groups, but yeah, they are a social. I think they call them eusocial insect. So yeah. Two frogs in the photo, very close together. One to the left of the one that I pointed out. Oh, well, now we got to go back. All right, I'll finish the chats and then we'll go back and look at that. Could the mice have been poisoned somehow? You know, Meredith, I suppose, you know, that's a thought. Mice, I know mice will, rodent baits cause them to become very thirsty. That's an interesting thought, because these were all in the paved section, which is behind the Q Center. So yeah, if they, it's impossible to say for sure, but I suppose if they had a, you know, an exterminator come, and those rodents then were looking, you know, driven out of where they were hiding in buildings. That's I wouldn't rule that out. That's an interesting thought. Kind of an unfortunate thought. In a way, it's good then that they were flattened into the pavement, because I don't think they were going to be very attractive to any other things that eat mice, like coyotes or foxes or hawks or owls. Good point. So many lightning bugs. Oh, cool. Good for you, Susie. Oh, and Suzette, 2 of you got stung. I'm sorry. Hopefully you didn't have a major reaction to it. It gives you a jolt, doesn't it? Yeah, you know, I haven't seen any lightning bugs here. Maybe after I turn my light off out here, I will. Real quick, Sarah, we're gonna go back to that. And folks, if you need to get to bed, I totally understand it.
The other frog's actually in better focus than the one you were pointing at.
Let's go back here. This one right here. So, oh, okay. So, oh, there's a big bullfrog there. Is that the one you're talking about?
That's what I meant. Yeah.
That's so cool. I didn't even see him there. Wow. So they've got a little interspecies competition. The green frog and the bullfrog. Nice spot, Sarah. I would not have seen him. So let's go to the next one. Now look at that. I wonder if because when I was walking up to the pond, there was one bullfrog, and then he went quiet, and the green frogs carried on. Super cool. Good spot. All right. I think that's it. First unread message. Got it all. All right, everybody. I think we kept you up late enough tonight. Really appreciate you tuning in. And next week, a week from tonight, is the 4th of July. So we will not be meeting next Tuesday. We'll pick up again on July 11th, when I'm sure we'll have a lot more good nature to share. So till then, be safe, have fun. Keep an eye out for lightning bugs and bumblebees.
Thank you, Pam.
Good night. Thank you. Good night.
Thank you, Pam.
Thank you. Thank you.